Yeah, we're actually using the front camera. So in pickup everyone, we've got multiple microphones as well. So it picks up really well. You don't have to speak too loud, but just be mindful that it does pick up everything. So if you happen to go get freshmen and have a side conversation, it'll be broadcast. Also, you can pick up paper shuffling, things like that. So it's not a huge group, so we shouldn't have a problem with that. I just want to let everybody know. And for the folks online, if there are comments, I guess use the raise hand feature or just wave your hand either way. And Jennifer, I know, and we'll all keep an eye on it for folks. Yep, that's the main point.
Okay. So we're live now.
Yeah.
Okay. So need to go over who is attending via Zoom. So I see we've got Roberto. Okay. I see we've got Roberto, we've got Nathan, and who else do we have that's attending remotely?
Hi, this is Melanie Stowe.
Okay, so Melanie. All right, so we've got Melanie, Roberto, and Nathan. And if you guys could just briefly go over your reasons for attending remotely so that we can get it recorded in the minutes, please. Roberto, go first.
Yes, I am exercising my family caregiving reasons in terms of being out of state and would have required airline flight to attend the meeting in person. So that's my reason.
Thanks, Roberto. Nathan?
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My daughter, unfortunately, has had an exposure to an active COVID case, so I thought it would be prudent to not attend in person.
Thanks, Nathan. We appreciate that. And Melanie?
Hey there, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina at my son's soccer game on the sideline.
Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all. And so, and we do have a quorum present, so we will be able to take any action that is necessary. And then Nathan, just we'll have to do roll call vote for everything. So just making you aware of that. And so
that sounds good. Would you actually mind letting me know who is there in person? I can't see very well. That way I can make sure I only call that out for attendees.
Sure. Carol Nash is here. Mark Buss is here. Cord Cochran is here. I'm here. Lisa Carter is here. Art Evans is here. Ann Burnett is here. And did I miss anybody?
Nope.
That's it. And then you've got Roberto and Melanie and yourself on the Zoom.
Hi, good morning. It's Dr. Baki. I didn't know if you'd seen that I had signed in. I'm not going to be able to be on for long because I have another commitment.
Okay. All right.
But I'm here.
Okay, and you're attending remotely. We just need your reason so we can put it in the minutes.
Sorry, I had muted myself. Another professional obligation.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
So Nathan, you heard you got Mukunda on?
Yes, I heard that, and it looks like just Dr. Benzing is not there. Is that correct?
No.
Mr. Phillips.
No. Mm-mm.
All right. If I call somebody out during the roll call that's not there, just remind me.
Tom is in the UK, right? Yeah, he's teaching abroad this time. Okay. I know. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go to approval of the minutes. They were in the packet of materials. Does anybody have any questions or comments to the minutes? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve them? So moved. Lisa, second. Mark? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Abubaki.
Yes, present, present.
And do you approve the minutes?
Yes, I approve.
Okay.
Ms. Ann Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Buss,
Aye.
Ms. Carter,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper.
She's no longer on the board.
Faye's not on the board anymore.
Okay, I'll make that note. Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Mr. Evans, Dr. Evans, excuse me,
Aye.
Dr. Nash.
Aye.
I don't believe Mr. Phillips is there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
Mr. Sanford votes aye, and Ms. Stowe.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to the chairman's report, I don't really have anything that's not going to be covered otherwise in the other committee reports, but we do have two resolutions I'm going to read those, and we are going to entertain their adoption. So the first one is for Siri Russell, who was a member of the Board of Trustees, but who has resigned. The resolution states, whereas Ms. Siri Russell has demonstrated an abiding interest in education and natural history through the years. Whereas Ms. Russell served the museum as a trustee from 2020 to 2021, ensuring that the museum focused its effort to better fulfill its mission and serve the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History gratefully expresses to Siri Russell its appreciation and the thanks of the citizens of the entire Commonwealth for the diligence and conscientious dedication with which she has served the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Done this 20th day of November 2021 in Martinsville, Virginia. And so can I entertain, I'll entertain a motion to approve that resolution. Lisa, second.
So moved.
Carol? Okay. Okay, all right, roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Okay, I think Mukunda said aye.
Nathan's muted.
Nathan, you're muted.
Yeah, I did. I said aye.
Okay.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Apologies. Ms. Ann
Okay.
Burnett,
I think
Ms.
you
Ann
are.
Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Buss,
Aye.
Ms. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
Mr. Sanford votes aye, Ms. Stowe.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next resolution has to do with Faye Cooper. All right, whereas Ms. Faye Cooper was appointed to the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History in July 2017. Whereas Ms. Cooper served as chair of the VMNH Waynesboro Advocacy Committee from May 2018 to June 2021. Whereas Ms. Cooper led the museum's efforts to establish a branch campus of VMNH near the Shenandoah National Park in Waynesboro, Virginia. Whereas Ms. Cooper frequently gave expert advice for navigating the nuances of state government. Whereas Ms. Cooper applied her passion for environmental conservation and sustainability to help guide VMNH in its mission to interpret Virginia's natural heritage in ways that are relevant to all citizens. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History gratefully expresses to Faye Cooper its appreciation and the thanks of the citizens of the entire Commonwealth for the diligence and conscientious dedication with which she has served the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Done this 20th day of November 2021 in Martinsville, Virginia. So I get a motion to approve the resolution. Carol, a second.
Second.
Cord. Roll call.
Dr. Abdul-Baki,
Aye.
Ms. Ann Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Buss,
Aye.
Ms. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
Mr. Sanford votes aye. Ms. Stowe.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on to the treasurer's report and turn it over to you, Roberto.
Great, thank you very much. I'll give you some highlights and then as usual, we'll allow staff to provide a number of details. I guess the salient points, we did have a meeting in Richmond in September. And I also had a short meeting with staff this week just to make sure everything is understandable. They will go into detail. The highlights are obviously in terms of the beginning of the year. So obviously in the numbers, you will see a lot of upfront costs being paid, insurance and things that obviously at the start of the year are in the budget for the whole year, but get paid up front. There are a number of contractor deadlines that are coming into play, and you're hearing the various reports how they may impact longstanding approvals that had happened in the past that are coming to fruition. One of the positive ones, of course, being the funding for all of the solar and energy improvements that we've been discussing. That some majority of that money has come in. Along with yesterday being a deadline for another contractor and process that will be put into play. So luckily, a lot of the things we've been talking about, we may actually see some activity on. There's a longer term potential yellow light, not anything to be concerned about, but obviously anybody who's been doing anything in their home with contractors and construction knows that material costs with the way things are going on have gotten kind of crazy. So at this point in time, there's nothing going on. It's just a matter of something that down the line, staff obviously will let us know if there's any concerns that come up with the contractors or anything that starts getting built, if that has an impact on any of anything that has been improved in the past, any of the budget numbers that could be potentially impacted. The only other thing I'd like to say is in September, we did have, our meeting was also in co-hosted and co-executed with the Strategic Planning Committee and with the presence of our foundation rep. So there was great positive conversation, not only in the things that are currently going on, but hopefully looking in the future and working together to give a longer term heads up to the foundation as we start thinking about, the longer term issues of what we want to be when we grow up and what the financial impacts of those kinds of things could be. So Joe, if I could request that you and staff fill us in with all the great details, since obviously everything is looking good. There's nothing, no red lights showing up. So if you could just fill us in, please.
Sure, I'm going to ask Jonathan to cover a few of these footnotes and so forth, but I'll just point out that with revenues, you'll notice that admission to museum is already close to 50%, and that's just the first quarter. So that's a good sign. Things are picking back up. Don't expect that trend to continue because that includes our Dragon Fest numbers. Ryan will give a report on that shortly, but it is a very good sign. We still have a very good relationship with both the city and the county. You'll see line 3 in revenues receipts. We're at 100%. That's been that way as long as I can remember. We'll just point out, though, this might be new to some of you, that Martinsville is undergoing reversion to become a town. I don't know what that looks like. Frankly said, the county has been the one that gives the lion's share of that $37,890 that goes to education and support Christie's salaries for her staff and so forth. So we don't know what that looks like right now, but without going into deep detail, be purely speculative at this point, but there may be some challenges that we have to overcome, such as this funding flow, but also there could potentially be some opportunities as we make that shift to become absorbed by the county. I don't see very much happening that could potentially be a negative for our operation, but we'll keep our finger on that pulse. So Jonathan, do you want to cover any of the footnotes?
Sure thing. Opportunity to go into the details here. Just what a difference 12 months makes. Last year, this time, we were a very COVID Christmas. And this year, we're reporting capital allocation of $61,000 to cover the staff wage increase that was voted on and passed in July by the legislature. We're just really excited about that. And then kind of a cool note is the publication sales. It might be a record. I don't know the whole history. I didn't look, but that just points out the strategic partnerships that Joe, Ryan, and the rest of the staff have cultivated over the years. We sold a number of books to a foundation on the Eastern Shore. In one big swoop, we really crushed any kind of projection we had in mind for that. And then per the board requests previously, we've increased our staff training. You'll notice that number is a little high. And we'll go ahead and adjust that moving forward into the next fiscal year. And then, as you guys know, we have several capital projects going on this time. So agency charges from DDS and will increase going forward. We would like to cover the capital projects now as well.
We have a facilities committee report, so we can jump back to that after that point. So thank you, Jonathan. Roberto, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like us to cover in terms of details.
No, that sounds great. I believe everyone's gotten the details and whatever. If there's no questions from anybody, I think we can move on. Great job, everyone.
Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Lisa, second.
Second.
Anne? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Dr. Abdulbaki,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you. Ms. Ann Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Buss,
Aye.
Ms. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
Mr. Sanford votes aye, and Ms. Stowe.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Moving on to the executive director's report and turning it over to Joe.
Okay, most of the materials that are covered in my report will be involved in the specific committee reports upcoming. However, I do want to point out, you heard me mention about the reversion process, which some people say it take a year. Bedford, when they went through it, took 5 years. So again, we're a little early in the process as far as details. That said, I will just say that Martinsville itself has begun, we've seen this before, and so we're moving forward cautiously. But Martinsville is almost on the cusp of starting to show some sense of a renaissance. We've had new businesses move in. The industrial parks have made major announcements of new industry coming in. And even in the uptown, we have some new businesses that have moved in to absorb some spaces. We also have, if somebody on the staff, Jonathan, anybody, Christy, could help me out here, the TAD space. It seems to be this multidisciplinary, multi-perspective economic development, almost an incubator that has seen some success and has developed a lot in terms of activity uptown. Want to add anything to that, Jonathan?
Well, it's both an event center and a shared co-op space with just community partners, allowing for those who don't have offices in our virtual working now, where people are working from home. It allows for conferences to be had, and office space for various citizens to have meetings to really look professional. And I think it goes a long way for our grassroots economic efforts.
Yeah, and I will also state that a lot of these efforts that we see going on has to do with long-term efforts by, say, our Economic Development Corporation, but also we've seen sort of an influx of people who used to live here, who grew up here, moved elsewhere, met with success, and have come back. And we've even seen such as our latest coffee shop, which is probably one of the better kind of cultural things that has kind of gone into the uptown recently. It's that was some outside investment from out of state. Somebody saw opportunity and took advantage. I'll also add that the historic courthouse uptown, that's the Cultural Heritage Center, Historic Society and whatnot, that's actually on the cusp of undergoing an expansion as well. They're adding an annex out the back. Last I heard, it's going to be 3 levels, 15,000 square feet that will have storage, exhibits, and meeting spaces. So that will expand. So we got a lot kind of going on. And we're keeping all that in mind with everything from our festivals to our outreach and whatnot. So I think we have a pretty fruitful period coming up and ongoing. And I know Ryan's keeping his finger on the pulse with all these new businesses moving in. Right now, we're still, despite the pandemic, have maintained a large number of corporate partners who provide everything from about $250 a year, such as our nonprofit partners, up to $5,000 per year for some of our higher level partnerships. And so that's something that we may be able to expand on as well. So I'll just say that things are kind of looking up from that standpoint. What I'd like to do is to have Ryan talk about events and fundraising. So Ryan, if you could take the floor, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned the strong revenue. So we're up over last year quite a bit. Obviously, last year was a joke in pandemic times. But it is a steady increase both in terms of visitation and also revenue. So what we're not seeing is the large spikes and large drops. We're seeing a steady rise where we want to be, obviously. On the museums, on the foundation side, sorry, we're actually seeing strong numbers as well. So memberships are up, membership revenues up, Discovery Fund donations, which is our annual fund. Dr. Joe Montgomery is here of the foundation. Joe, please jump in. So working with the foundation, things are looking up, things are looking strong. With memberships, we're gonna, in addition to an ongoing campaign we have this fall, we're gonna do a survey in January. So we're gonna reach out to existing members, lapsed members, maybe folks that are members in the past that haven't rejoined yet, and also the general public, and just want to find out what benefits they value the most, what are we offering that they most value, what are things maybe we're not offering that we should offer. We have perspective of staff, but we want to hear from the members, figure out what can we do better to improve this membership. As far as additional museum revenue, so we do have exhibit rentals. So you probably heard about those in the past. They did pretty much drop off during the pandemic for obvious reasons. But we have a pending rental for next summer. So the Greenwood Museum in South Carolina is verbally committed to host our Dinosaur Maze exhibit. So that will be next summer. The deposit would probably come in either the second or third quarter of this fiscal year. So that's a nice trend as well. Those things are picking up as well. And those tend to be a snowball effect. So once we get it out there in one museum, other museums see it, we're able to use that for marketing. So if we get that revenue paying back as well. Back on the foundation side, the endowment growth is strong. So over the past 5 years, we've seen 11% average annual growth in the endowment. That's primarily growth of the fund itself, but a few gifts as well. So we do have a pending estate gift. It's in probate right now, but a longtime supporter, her family was a supporter museum, and so she had passed last spring, or spring 2021. It's going to be a long process for the probate, but we are one of the beneficiaries of that rule. It was approximately $1 million total, and we're one of 10 beneficiaries. So, depending on how things work out, roughly 100,000. So that's a nice trend as well, and we will celebrate that gift to hopefully inspire others. Joe mentioned the grants and corporate partnerships, so I won't list them all. We've got the exciting thing is we've got partnerships supporting all areas of operations. So we've got for exhibits, research, education, working with curators on a variety of grants. So everything from, like Joe mentioned, $250 a year to $10,000 a year partnerships and higher level grants as well. So what we're doing is kind of packaging our reopening. So we're calling it our Science Outreach Initiative. And so we kicked that off with the Patterson Foundation grant in August for $20,000. And so with that, we're packaging all the festivals, all the exhibits, programming, all the things we're doing, getting back to relative normal, and package that within the Science Outreach Initiative. So it's a great way for marketing, but also for fundraising to package it. We're not doing random individual things, we're doing overall outreach effort. So that's been successful so far as well. As far as recent upcoming events, we talked about Dragon Festival. It was very successful. It was a 2-day event. We drew about 1,300 visitors. We had the required vaccination or proof of negative test requirements. And with that, it went really smoothly. I mean, we got the word out. Folks showed up prepared. A few folks showed up that didn't have paperwork and they were understanding. Yeah, I think overall it was a great success. And I think people were very appreciative. We got overwhelming positive feedback from the visitors. So that was great. Kind of a toe back in the waters of Full Festival. Next festival coming up is going to be the Flight Festival, and that's going to be celebrating opening day of the Science of Flight exhibit. So that opening is January 22nd. So it's opening day of the exhibit with the festival celebrating opening day. So we'll have a variety of partners, activities, programs that day, and we'll have a reception Thursday before. So January 20th, we'll have a members and donors reception. So mark your calendar for that, please, as well. Yeah, and as far as just other highlights, Groupon sales, I've talked about that before. They tend to be sort of a precursor to increased visitation. Nothing's guaranteed, but as the Groupon sales go up, we tend to see increases in overall visitation, particularly at festivals. Folks buy the Groupons and use them at festivals, so that's a good trend as well. And those sales are actually reaching pre-pandemic levels, so that's a good sign. And finally, I just want to mention the Museums for All program. So this, again, is a program where we offer, in the past, we offered reduced admission to EBT card holders and families. Thanks to a corporate partnership with Hooker Furniture, that's now free of charge. So Hooker Furniture underwrote the remaining cost of the admission. So we've seen strong visitation. So in the first quarter, 4% of our visitation was Museums for All families, visitors. And at Dragon Festival is 9%. So of the 1,300 visitors at Dragon Festival, 9% were part of that program, which is a great program, and overwhelming positive visitation as well. So I think the fact that it was attractive to Hooker Furniture to support that, I think we can build on that and look at other partners as well. It's great for the community, it's great for us, great for the corporate partners. So we're really proud of that. And last thing I'll mention is zip code data. So over the first quarter, 77% of our visitors came from outside Martin County. So obviously that's a trend we want to continue. We want to reach local folks. We want the local folks to come here, but we also want to continue to get the word out and get our message out and draw other visitors. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ryan?
I have a question. So the festival that's in January, when you can't really have a giant outside component because it's cold, do we still get good visitorship for those?
Yes, that's a great question. The January festivals tend to be more on the level of 500 to 1,000 people. There's never a guarantee.
That's still a lot of
It
people.
is, it's a lot. And that's actually what we've seen is when we have the indoor festivals, the sweet spot is somewhere like 750. I mean, anything more than that, we have to really get creative to make sure there's not, backups and lines, things like that. So I think we have a good model. I think we have a good festival for January days.
There'll be a mask requirement for that one. We had I know this is something that Roberto has talked to us about. We had either a vaccination or a recent positive test policy for Dragon Fest, and amazingly to me, I didn't expect this, but you let it go. There were a couple of young couples that showed up and they're like, we didn't know, we don't have anything. Can we go get a self-test and do it right in front of you? Sure, right? And they did it, and it worked out. So we only had a couple of complaints about that, but really on social media, there were certain actors who decided to take advantage of that. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. I got pretty thick skin, it goes back to being the smallest guy in kindergarten. But that said, it is disheartening, for staff to have to read that and so forth. We did have a discussion with Audrey in terms of social media policy and as a public venue, public agency and whatnot. There really isn't much we can do about that. But personally, just from my estimation, we're fine. Let them rail, So Audrey, I don't know if you had anything just in general about state agencies that you wanted to add to that.
Just that, First Amendment trust groups is pretty extensive, so without going into a big treatise, it really is, that's really the primary limitation on, when you create a public forum online. I'm happy to talk to any of you if you ever want to go go into a closed session to discuss that in a little more depth. I would say that agencies that have developed policies, they've been mostly kind of aspirational, kind of a statement of values. We create this in order to foster interest and exhibit, and you can kind of state, that's all, but you can't actually, the actual taking action on things is when you might start to run into issues. So without getting into any specifics and talk about that further, anybody has any questions?
Well, I guess they say any publicity is good publicity, so all good. But I will just underscore, to finish up my report, underscore what Brian said, that it's very encouraging, when we do these festivals and so forth, there are those of us who sit here in the front and we talk to people, where you're from and all that kind of thing. We of course have zip code data, which follows our general data trends. But we have people coming from a long way, people from Richmond, Winchester, Harrisonburg, of course, Roanoke, and what was it, a third of the people coming from North Carolina?
Yeah, roughly. And for the first quarter, we had visitors from 31 states and Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, why not? So again, a lot of the details in terms of all the great things going on in research and education, our capital projects and so forth, our strategic plan, that's all going to be covered in committee, but I don't know if anyone had any general questions on our reports. Thank you,
Okay.
Jennifer.
All right. So, Nathan, just to give you a heads up, Mukunda left the meeting around 11. So she had to drop off. And I wanted to thank Joan for being here on behalf of the foundation. I missed that in the beginning. Thank you for your attendance, and thanks to Audrey for being here as usual to keep us straight. I'm going to move on to the facilities committee report. I'm gonna start off by saying we need a chair for this. So if you have a passion for facilities or anything like that, reach out to me, reach out to Joe. Because we do need a chair for that. To talk about facilities, the major projects right now are Douglas Avenue, the Gene S. Adams Education Pavilion, the ESCO project, that's the Energy Savings Project, and VMNH Waynesboro. So I will talk a little bit about Douglas Avenue, Gene S. Adams, and ESCO, and a little bit about Waynesboro, because I think Carol is going to do a report on the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee. So Douglas Avenue, if you remember, we are putting a new roof on Douglas Avenue, and we are waiting for roofing material, as we talked about previously. Everything is just taking longer these days. When the roof is done, there will be more testing to see if the temperature and humidity data will allow specimen storage there, or whether other things need to be done. The Gene S. Adams Education Pavilion, bids have come in. We are in the process of reviewing those, and we've got I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Joe, at this point.
Yeah, we have essentially a discrepancy between the architect who gave us a cost estimate earlier this fall and what the bid showed. So we contacted him and basically told him that he knows what the budget is, and we understand that despite the fact that we have a budget, that in today's world, we understand that there could be some price escalation, and we have some means to overcome that. However, the discrepancy was so large, we asked that he's going to have to rectify that free of charge. And so he understands that, and we're having a conversation on Monday. So I'm just a font of good news when it comes to that. But yeah, we'll work with them, to ensure that the two line up.
Yeah. Okay. And so the Energy Savings Project, we've had the preparatory meetings with Siemens. The work's supposed to begin middle of this month, and it's going to be estimated 8 months to completion. And that's a solar array installation, HVAC upgrade, LED retrofit, and the EV charger installation. And then for Waynesboro, just briefly, so we will be, there'll be a future capital campaign with respect to that. And actually, the museum is going to contract with James Madison University. Their facilities personnel are going to be the construction manager. throughout the design and the construction of that facility. So does anybody have any questions with respect to facilities? And obviously we have new electronics in here, so.
I'll also just add that the building is doing very well. We're 15 years old, don't forget now. We always still call it the new building, but it's not so new. But Tim King and his team have really kept up on it. We have some strategic use of maintenance reserve funds. Just refresh memories, that does not come out of our operating budget. That is a calculated allocation that comes to us periodically from the state based upon the size of essentially our square footage and types of facilities that we run. So I think we're in good shape facility wise.
Okay, anything else on capital projects, Jonathan? or anything?
Doing good, everything's moving along, it's just lots of steps.
Okay, all right, does anybody have any questions on facilities?
Will there be a Sweet 16 celebration next year then?
We're gonna leave. Roberta,
Like
we're gonna leave,
quinceañera.
yeah, we're gonna leave that to the board of trustees, as you are very creative. So forth. So you just let staff know what we need to do.
All right, so I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Art Evans to do the Research and Collections Committee report.
Yes, thank you. Please refer to item number 7 in your board packets for the approved minutes of the August RNC committee meeting and quarterly sessions and the summary of territorial activities for the third quarter. We had a very brief meeting this morning. We did not have a quorum, but fortunately nothing required immediate action, so we plowed ahead. This quarter's accession has prompted a brief discussion on the museum's policy regarding the acceptance of specimens collected on lands managed by federal agencies. Materials secured on lands owned by the Bureau of Land Management and the National Park Service, both of which are part of the Department of the Interior, are not accessioned by the museum but are maintained as permanent loans, and these materials are readily available to be used by the curators and staff. Dr. Adam Pritchard reported that the search to fill the position for curator of herpetology is going well. More than 20 qualified candidates have applied for the position. The museum's curators and staff are meeting next week to select the top 4 or 5 candidates for interviews. And of these, the selection of candidates will be invited to interview in person. And if all goes well, an offer will be made by May of next year. Dr. Cal Ivanov noted the new curator will inherit a collection that is in good shape and consists mostly of amphibians. Dr. Ivanov also commented that the new molecular lab is now fully functional. The first DNA extractions were made back in August. The imaging lab is also fully functional and is producing images for all departments and outreach programs. One last piece of business that I need the board to consider this morning is that Dr. Hayden Bassett had previously recommended that the Board of Trustees consider appointing one of his colleagues, Bill Welsh, as an affiliated researcher. And his qualifications were submitted to the committee, and he's eminently qualified to be part of the museum family. And Dr. Nash, you have had some experience, or at least you know of his work. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just that he will be a great addition. He is going to bring a very, very different dimension, but his skill level is incredibly high. He's going to enhance the program that Hayden has started, the Monuments Men program.
So I would ask the chair to entertain a motion to approve his appointment as a research associate.
Since the recommendation comes from committee, it doesn't need a second. So does any discussion on the recommendation? Okay, hearing none. Let's do a roll call vote to approve the recommendation of the Research and Collections Committee as presented by Dr. Art Evans at the meeting. Turn it over to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Ms. Ann Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Jennifer Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Buss,
Aye.
Ms. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Kaufman,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
Mr. Sanford votes aye. Ms. Stowe.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have for the Research and Collections Committee report.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Roberta, I'm going to turn it over to you for the Development Marketing Committee report.
Well, not much left to say. You folks have covered so much of it already. We've heard about the where we stand in terms of fundraising. We've heard of where we stand into great events, then the marketing capabilities that have happened. I think the only one point of information and one request. The point of information is, as you can see, if you saw the name Siemens come up in terms of our solar stuff, you also saw the name come up in terms of one of our sponsors. So it's great to see this level of cooperation and symbiotic relationship between getting vendors involved, not only in the money going out, but also the leveraging of their corporate resources to get us there. The request comes in terms of the point that was raised about online and social media. We know there's a limited budget there, and lots of times that's another great area that we can leverage. I'd like you to think if you have one or two folks within your network that are social media addicts, so to speak, and request that they check out the social media of the museum and jump in every now and then. Joe mentioned a slight situation we had with the Dragon Festival, and in terms of just liabilities, in terms of reputational liabilities, we don't want to become somebody's vehicle for whatever they seem to want to spout on social media. So it'd be great to have more allies out there that check in on our social media and jump in every now and then. The Dragon Festival is obviously a great asset that we have. I'm sure you're aware of medieval festivals that happen all across the country every year and gain a big following. So obviously we're gaining that following with the Dragon Festival, and it'd be great to someday have some of the people that come after us celebrating the 20th annual Dragon Festival, for example. So that would be a great thing. Any questions in terms of development and marketing? Obviously, we're trying to leverage things everywhere we can, and trying to work lockstep with the foundation on making sure that these things get out there.
Okay.
Roberta, I'd like to just take a minute, as this was something that was covered in that committee briefly, just to remind everyone that our annual fundraiser is coming back. It was on hiatus for a couple of years for obvious reasons, but in April, do we have a date for that? April 24th is Grapes and Grains here at the Virginia Museum of Natural History, sponsored by the VMNH Foundation. So Joan, thank you. And what we've done in the past is that we have given a certain number of tickets to all trustees with the request to attempt to sell them. Some have just outright bought them and donated them to, say, educators and other folks, but we would appreciate any help that you can give us in terms of getting tickets out there for us. Also, if you have gifts, now is the time to start thinking of not gifts, but auction items. We don't have a problem getting large and sometimes ostentatious pieces of furniture and stuff. Those don't move, right? We store them for years on end. We're very grateful to get them, and eventually do move. And it's a great thing when one of them sells, but it's like in the pet store, you always want to try to sell, a hound for $1,000, but that's not how you make your money. You're selling biscuits and stuff for said hound, making more money on that. So point is that items that might go for like $50 or $100 would be wonderful. Experiences go very nicely as well. Curators put field trips out there. I put field trips out there. They're easy for us to do, and people will actually bid on them and make some good money on them. So please keep those in mind. We'd love for you to participate both in the ticket sales as well as the donation of items that can be auctioned off in the silent auction. For those of you who haven't been to one, it's I'm not ashamed to say this. It is Martinsville's second most popular fundraiser. The SPCA Hairball is the most popular one locally, and that's for obvious reasons. You put the puppies out there, people just can't help themselves. We put petrified cats out on display, and we get a lot of interest, but it's just not the same. So again, very much appreciate your help with this upcoming.
Hey, Joe,
Yes, sir.
is there a, could you folks maybe come up with a short 2-paragraph or little image or something to save the date and the ask that you just had, looking for auction items, just so that we can pass them around our networks and start saving the date around for people?
Yeah, Mary Zell and Ryan will put heads together, and we'll get something to the full board as well as the foundation board here shortly.
Yeah, just, I'm thinking just something simple that can be sent around and, we can share within whatever networks we have.
Okay, Ryan?
I just want to add too, I did not mention it in the advancement report, but we are working with the curators and also Christie education staff as well on several large federal grants. So these are curator and educator led grants. But my role working with them or sort of being liaison with the foundation. So those will be VMNH Foundation led or administered grants, but there are several really exciting large grants, IMLS, NSF, US State Department. So more to come on those, but that's very exciting.
Is there anything coming out of the infrastructure package that passed and was signed by the president that would be helpful to us or we could go after?
I'm going to be actually running that exact question by Greg Hitchen, Director of Economic Development for Waynesboro. So that's one area that we're looking at. We should be posing the same question and will to, despite reversion, to some of our city leaders, but we'll also run that by Mark Heath, who is our Director of the Economic Development Corporation for Marshall Henry County.
There's also a lot of climate stuff, so I don't know if that any research grants will come out of that could be for any of the sciences.
We're watching that very carefully. I co-chair the Society for American Archaeology International Committee on the Impact of Climate Change on Cultural Heritage. And it's a hard read right now as to exactly where that funding is going to go. There's still a strong push for that money to go toward infrastructure to mitigate carbon, as opposed to actual research or, God forbid, money to deal with things that are being impacted.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, you never know. Good to keep an eye on.
Agreed.
You go ahead, Roberto.
No, just as you were having the conversation, it hit me, our charging station. I don't know if any new grants or whatnot might pop up in terms of helping pay for the charging station.
The chargers themselves are being donated by DEQ, so there will be no cost to them except for picking them up. Siemens will install them, and that's part of the budget, 15-year budget for the entire energy project. And I'm missing one thing. Oh, and Jonathan, they should be a small profit center for us. People can put their credit cards in, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so people can come to the museum and charge their vehicles. Yeah, they except for the actual installation of running the line to the museum, they should not represent cost for us. But anything else that might support us being a vehicle charging center, we should be the first. We'll certainly look out for that. So thank you.
Anything else on development marketing? Hearing none, I'm gonna turn it over to Cord for education and public programs.
All right, good morning. So a few of the things we talked about today with our numbers, we're at the museum for July, August, and September of this year. And you'll notice that for July, we had 531 people come here, and that was 400 of those were from club day participants. So the neat thing about that was if you looked at the numbers, taking away the 400, our numbers stayed very consistent. As far as, the 130 there, 84, then 102. So our numbers are staying very consistent. We got in several new grants. Some of our old ones will end in December, like the Boxley grant. That Boxley grant went for 44 different programs that the education group did. And now we have a new grant from Monogram Loves Kids Foundation that was for $10,000. And that's going to basically sponsor 110 programs. And Christy let us know that 66 of those programs have already been filled. So the well over half. And then Siemens Empower Grant, also we got $7,000 towards purchase of supplies to create renewable energy programs there. And then there was one other thing that I'm gonna let Christy talk about, and it's this really cool new hydroponics thing that she did. So I wanna let her do that.
Thank you, Cord. So we acquired several hydroponic growing units. So this week with our homeschool science and engineering academy students, we let them plant the seeds in the nursery part of the growing units. So they planted 2 varieties of lettuce mixes and some basil. So they planted the seeds on Wednesday. They're already starting to germinate. And what we're looking to do is, of course, have our homeschool students that are here twice a month work with the plants. They will be transplanting them out of the nursery into the actual growing units the first week of December. They will be able to chart observations, growth, and have a lot of discussion with these plants. And then, of course, the plants themselves will be utilized not only by the students, but also some of our animals here, our cockroaches that we have downstairs, possibly leafcutter ants, and some of our other animals. So yes, we're very excited about that. We just started it this week.
I just want to point out that it was actually a foundation board member that connected us with the company that manufactures these. These are, they make giant, they set up farms with these huge facilities, but they also make these small modular systems. And so it was a foundation board member who hooked us up with them, and the company sold them to us for far below cost. So we got a bargain on them. So
Which company did you end up going on?
I knew you were gonna ask.
Hive.
Hive, thank you. Yes, HYVE, right? So they're out of Benton.
Yes.
No, not Benton, Verona.
Yes.
Verona. I guess. So they're out of Verona, Virginia.
Well, if you get a chance to go downstairs and look at it, it's the
Yeah.
coolest looking thing. I mean, Joan and I were talking about, we should have wheels to roll it up there just so everybody can see it.
Doesn't it have wheels?
If you get a chance, go look at it, because it was really neat. We're like, it's gonna be the smallest heads of lettuce known to man. So, but it was really, really nice. So, but that's it for me.
Okay, anything else on education public programs? Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Nash for Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, and I will mention too, we need a chair for Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, correct? Okay.
Yes, and, you know, I just want to mention that those are some big shoes to fill. And a lot of that was local knowledge and local networking, but also provision. And I think that as we go forward and think about chairing, the chair for this committee, it might be wise to talk with her about how she saw it set up and where she thinks that it would be going. But the Waynesboro Advisory Committee itself is on hiatus right now. The group meeting together to discuss programming and so forth and planning. Instead, we have divided into groups. We've divided into co-working groups that are focused on the building itself, exhibits, visitor services, green energy classrooms and lab, and landscape design. So there are 5 different working groups, and they have all met, and they will continue to meet so that they can come up with planning to share with the architectural and engineering firm that will be engaged with the detailed design. I was hoping, Joe, that perhaps you could talk a little bit about the budget and the delay that has occurred so that we can, in terms of actually selecting that firm.
Yeah, we had a good meeting with Department of Planning and Budget on November 1st. They were the one who initiated it. No detailed planning project in the state has moved forward to this point. That is just due to backlog, COVID, retirements. It was a large pile of things. So they have completed all of their work, and the last approval is from the DPD director, and so we're given the term anytime now. So we're basically just waiting on that, but they assured us that we've done everything that we're supposed to. Jonathan has submitted the proper paperwork, so we're just in that holding pattern. And they painted a roadmap for us to move, despite the delay. We fully expect to be at work with the A&E firm by now, but they gave us a roadmap that will hopefully work for us to move to the construction pool in 2023, which would be where we would get the significant gift from the state, and we would translate the detailed design into the construction documents that we get to a contractor. So we're good on our end, you know, but we just kind of have to wait at this point. Jonathan, did I miss any details?
That's about it. Everything's been submitted, and the budget execution has been even entered into the budget system, so we're just waiting on the director of DPD to sign off.
And then the call for proposals will go out after that.
That is all written and ready to go onto the electronic system.
Right. I do have one question, and I'm wondering, just in thinking about the immediate future, the change in administration in Richmond, for example, are there things that the board itself needs to be mindful of as we are talking with legislators? In particular, just to make sure that this project stays on track.
Yeah, it's one thing that I probably should have went ahead and covered with that name of DPP. They fully recognized that at that point, that was right before the election. They said don't worry, right? We weren't sure who was going to be governor. Nonetheless, there would be a change in governor anyway. The people who are going to be the most important and instrumental in this are going to be the staffs associated with the Senate and the House money committees. And as such, there is not going to be any turnover projected in that. In fact, one of the folks on one of those committees is actually taking a step up in the ladder, but his protege will be taking his place. So there will be a lot of consistency, and the folks we talked with said that they would personally introduce us to those folks so we could give them a briefing on where our project stands. Again, Jonathan, that falls into your wheelhouse. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Most of the Department of Planning budget and DGS folks are 30-year veterans. Those departments don't turn over. So within the administration, they're going to be there. They're going to have our project in mind moving forward into the new cycle of legislation.
And incidentally, you know, just in terms of momentum, Jonathan has also worked with the folks about the real estate transfer.
Yes, that's already in the works. So as far as the Department of Land Management goes, they know that the property is going to be moved over. There's the geologic survey land survey that have to be completed, but that's all in line for us to take the property on as state property.
So that's where we stand, but anyone who has any insights on government relations as far as moving forward, love to hear.
Carol, who's on the landscape design team?
Oh my goodness, let's think about this. I am on the, hang on just a second. I'm on the green energy classrooms and lab team. And I'll be honest with you, since we don't have a chair for the committee right now, I don't have that information at hand. You all.
Yeah, I can bring that up. You just take a second here.
I just think, since it seems that we're doing this thing, that we should take full advantage of the building and the landscape as an educational opportunity too. And I know getting a LEED certification might be a tall order for a state building, but it's something to think about. And certainly rainwater gathering capabilities, planting native plants, limiting the amount of hardscape around or collecting water from hardscape, whatever is appropriate for that kind of space, we should do that and blow our own horns at the same time so people see what we're doing. It's not just a building and pretty plants around, but there's a purpose for this, and it's to encourage the immediate community and beyond that these are things that can be done.
I'm pretty sure that is part of the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Art. And one thing that I'm really, the team is led in-house by Zach. He's Zach Ryder. He is our marketing manager, he organizes the meetings and so forth. But we have Len Poulin from the VMNH Foundation, Dwayne Jones, who's head of Parks and Recreation for Waynesboro, and we had Siri Russell. I may be asking another trustee to step in. If anyone would like to be part of that. There's also a very strong tie-in with the exhibits group, especially with our Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy rep. He is someone that had devised the idea that's got a lot of traction of actually using the greenway. So basically from the front door of the museum out to the river, down the greenway to the parking lot at the intersection of the Greenway and Arch Avenue, which 1.5 miles, maybe something like that, to turn that into a geological timeline. So we start with the formation of Earth, and you go most of it before you begin to see life, and then maybe replicate that in a small sense on the inside. So we have a lot of great cross-pollination there. That said, we've basically hammered down the message that while we recognize that we picked 25 to 30,000 square feet as sort of the Goldilocks size that gives us a proper draw without being a monster to run financially, that we were going to have to leverage everything from the roof and any kind of green roof facility that we can afford to put up there, to utilizing the outside of the building, not just in the ways that you're talking about, but maybe even having two-dimensional exhibits on the outside of the building that would be free to the public, but would expand the visitor experience, connecting them more to the park. So we completely agree with that. And I know you, I've already forgotten the detail, but I did forward it. It was with bird, was that a bird strike?
Yeah, it was a film that you can apply to windows that is not real obvious to us and people looking out, but it's very apparent to birds. At the Virginia Museum, or excuse me, Virginia Natural History Society, which met here, I think in 2018, 2019, one of the professors of the local colleges has been doing a study of bird strikes on buildings where students are going around just picking up bodies, and where a building is located, landscaping in the immediate vicinity of the building, as well as the proximity of the building to watercourses has a big influence on bird traffic, and the apparency of the windows, buildings, and wires and everything else is critical. So, you know, having an idea of what kind of a corridor, the activity that's in this place could make a big difference. You know, it'd be great to set up this building, but it's going to be discouraging if staff is going around picking up dead bodies every morning. So, you know, the public doesn't get discouraged by, you know, what a death trap, an inadvertent death trap the building could become.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think also the message is you can learn from what we do building everything from green energy technologies to things like you know, bird strike and so forth. It should be.
I have a mild interest in this. I'm not committing to anything, but I'll continue to pass them along, and so they wind up in the portfolio of whoever is moving this thing forward.
And that's exactly right. And that's why we have these teams now. We want to make sure that each team has a discrete message that they offer to the A&E team, the A&E firm, that this is what VMNH expects. These are our standards. And this is what we want. We do not want to be a body producer.
Definitely wants to be green inside and out.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Okay. Any other questions on Waynesboro advocacy? And again, anybody interested in being chair, please reach out to me or Joe. It's an important committee, an important project, and you will have Faye to sort of give you the backdrop.
And I as well. I mean, I have thought about trying to take on the chair, and I'm so overcommitted at this point, but you know, I am right there, and so I will certainly provide as much support as I possibly can.
Appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to University Partnerships Committee, turn it to Joe.
Yeah, so we didn't meet, and I didn't provide an actual report, but I just wanted to give a verbal report that after our initial meeting and electronic discussions about university partnerships, and just to refresh everyone's memory, the idea was how do we integrate more into universities and their ability to absorb funds, and we become part of that, especially with our, not just our researchers, which have a different angle of interest in the natural world than traditional academic researchers, but that said, also how does our education exhibits program fold into that? So since then, right now we are in 3 pretty strong partnerships. The first you've already heard about, the JMU construction manager partnership that went back to our signing of an MOU with James Madison University to find ways to mutually collaborate. So we're making good on that. The next is Ryan mentioned it briefly, but we work closely with the University of Florida, University of Oregon, Howard University, and others that are curators, multiple curators be involved in an NSF grant that is fossil-based, but that will not just develop some research into a particular suite of fossils in ancient life, but we'll also develop some outreach and a traveling exhibit to go with the research project. So that was perfect. So this is exactly what we're looking for. And the last university partnership is with Virginia Tech and Roanoke College. You're probably going to hear more about this, so I'll take a second to talk about it, but there's a concept that has really taken traction maybe in the last 10, 15 years, and it's called critical zones on the planet Earth. So we look at the thin veneer of the outside of the planet Earth where life exists. And there's what the scientists in these working groups call critical zones. So when you look at where geology is eroded to create soil, that's a critical zone. Where soil is present to support the plants, that's a critical zone. All the way up front to the tops of the trees and the highest mountains down to where life exists underground. So this is something that's received a lot of NSF money over time. And I didn't know this at the time, but Catherine O'Neill, who's chair of biology at Roanoke College, she serves on our foundation board. She is a leader in one of these working groups. And one of Jim Beard's, our former retired curator of earth sciences, one of his tight colleagues at Virginia Tech is also involved in this. So we will be meeting in between semesters over winter break to talk about how critical zones will potentially be an excellent way to present exhibits in VMNH Greensboro. So that was a long way of saying that the University Partnership Ad Hoc Committee has really spurred on these discussions. And I would just like to say, as a day-to-day museum operator, and make the request to the chair that it is okay with me at this point if that ad hoc committee sunsets, but I will leave that to the pleasure of the board.
Okay. Do we have to take any action or anything on that? Or?
I think you get the pleasure of dissolving it if you see fit.
Okay. All right. Well, take that under advisement. Anything else on University Partnerships Committee or the sunsetting of it or anything? Okay. All right, I'm going to move forward to the Strategic Planning Committee and going to turn it over to Lisa. And this is another committee where we need some members. If you are interested in the strategic planning, please contact me or Joe. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to talk about the committee.
Yeah, so the committee did meet in September and talked about a number of things. The first thing we talked about was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we had a really good discussion about additional things the museum could do. But one of the things we talked about that I wanted to mention here is that it is the Strategic Planning Committee's mission, but it's really the entire board's mission. So as you're out at other museums, as you're doing your research or looking for articles, please pass along to the board, the committee, anything that you think additional that the museum could be doing, because I think we have some growth to do there. A second topic we talked about was the board retreat and the strategic plan. So there are a number of things that the museum is doing right now that are not in the strategic plan. Our diversity, equity, inclusion work is not in the plan. The recent ESCO work is not in the plan. So I'm glad we're getting together at that strategic retreat to really spend some time thinking about strategy, the future, who we want to be when we grow up. So important topic for you guys to weigh in on is where we have our strategic retreat. So we want to do it somewhere fun and different. We're thinking about maybe the Rice Center in Richmond, TBD. That's a very nice facility on the James River, run by VCU. A green building, lovely location. Don't know if we can get it. So other locations, something interesting, something different. If you have any thoughts on a location for the board retreat, please let me know.
And we do that in May, right, Lisa?
Yeah, it is in May.
Okay.
I'm not sure we have the date, but I know May.
So May 19th.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, if we have to move that date based off of, facility availability, I believe we can do that. I think it's set for May 21st right now. As you're thinking about places, just wanted to let everybody know it's May.
Okay. And then the last thing, which Jennifer already mentioned, is that the strategic planning committee is me and Roberto. It's not enough people to be strategic. So we'd very much like additional participation on the committee. We're a fun committee, so come join us. That's
Lisa,
it.
if the rice facility doesn't work out, we have completed the renovations on our 1840 hook house at the Jamie Farm.
Okay.
And it's right on the North River, and it's a
very nice.
beautiful spot.
Okay.
It's a beautiful spot. It's fully mediated, breakout rooms.
Perfect.
Does your connections make it free or at least reasonable?
I am the faculty member who is responsible for saving the farm. So, yes. Yeah.
So I know if we would have that connection with the Rice Center, they would charge us. Anyway, I just throwing that out.
I did look at the rates. It's actually very reasonable, but it still would be an expense. And, you know, I wasn't aware that that would be an option. So that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, so, yeah, so definitely send along the details, information, that sort of thing to Joe. And also to Lisa, so we can figure that out, because we're gonna need to make a decision about that at the next meeting.
That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for the strategic planning.
Okay, hearing nothing, so moving on to announcements and discussion of our next board meeting. We talked about this in the executive committee meeting yesterday. We traditionally have our meeting that happens in February to coincide with when the General Assembly is in session. And, you know, I still think it's important that we do that. So, you know, I would recommend that we have the meeting in Richmond. Lisa had offered that maybe we could meet at her offices at Dominion for the actual board meeting, which would be great. So then we wouldn't have to, you know, rent a space in a hotel or anything like that. And I think you said there's a hotel across the street if anyone needs to.
And we have a green
to
roof
stay.
that people can go out and see with pollinators and all that, so it's actually really nice.
Yeah, so I think that would be a neat thing to do to coincide, you know, with the General Assembly. So I think at this point, the meeting for February is set for, when is that set for?
Well, we don't have an actual.
We don't have the date yet,
It would
okay.
normally be the third weekend.
Yeah.
But we wanted to keep it open as we know that there are dates that come up in the General Assembly schedule that are best to avoid.
Yes, so if anybody has any insight into the General Assembly, or kind of their schedules and when would be the best time to schedule that meeting, I'm all ears. So anybody have any insight now they want to share, or you just kind of want to think about it? And
I offered in the executive committee to ask our lobbyist if there were days to avoid or to go toward, so I'll get that back to you all.
Okay.
I don't know if it's on my head.
And we'll reach out as well as staff, and we'll try to get this resolved by mid-December, so we can go down the calendar.
And we'll also figure out sort of what we're gonna hand out. We always hand out something there. I kind of leave it to the staff to sort of figure out what's the best thing to hand out at that meeting. So in any event, stay tuned for more information on that, but if everyone is sort of a consensus of the board that agrees we should go to Richmond and do some walking around, splitting up and talking to the legislators, then that's what we're gonna do. And hopefully we'll get some more information. Appreciate you talking to your lobbyist, Lisa, to kind of figure out when would be a good time, and also offering Dominion's facilities. And so we'll be in touch more about that. Anything else from an announcement standpoint from staff or?
Mary Zell would like to explain the paperwork.
So just
Absolutely.
as a quick announcement, one, if you do not have an ID badge that looks like this, I can get your picture after the meeting and I can get that for you the next time I see you. Also, you received a vaccine form to fill out if you decided to see already. I already have all your cards, it's your paperwork to go along to our HR department. And previously, board members have asked for board of trustees business cards, those are the business cards you all received. They have my contact information just because we printed them in bulk and it made a little more sense to do that in a more cost-effective way. However, they're for you when you're reaching out within your network about the board.
So if somebody uses those and uses your contact information, you'll contact us and say they're looking for you?
Absolutely. Okay, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Mary Sal. Any other announcements? Okay. All right, well, I just want to thank the board for being here. I want to thank the staff, the foundation, Audrey, everybody who helps make the museum run very well, as it seems to be running. Particularly coming out, I don't know, are we post-pandemic yet? I'm not sure, so. But we are, as John said, we're not doing a COVID Christmas so much this year, so at any rate. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, hearing nothing, then I will adjourn the meeting. Okay.
We have lunches back